$1 super chat. All right, let's get to some headlines. Les Miles, the former coach at LSU, Oklahoma State, Kansas, and elsewhere, is suing LSU, saying that their deal with the NCAA to eliminate some of the wins, vacate some of the wins, actually will leave him just under the 60% win percentage you need at .5966. Here's one thing that Dennis Dodge said. No matter the vacated wins at LSU because of the NCAA agreement with LSU, had he won one more game at Kansas, back when it was tough to, but if he would have won one more game, instead of 3-18, he was 4-17, he would be eligible. One of the note that he put in this, Craig, and this is I thought was interesting, he's been eligible to be a part of the College Football Hall of Fame since November of last year. As of at least now, Oklahoma State, LSU, and Kansas have nominated him. And he coached
nominated him.
That's what I mean. Have not, I don't know if I have, neither Oklahoma State, LSU, or Kansas have nominated him.
Right, yeah, they have not nominated him, so they are clearly not in his corner as far as it appears from that part of this. Wow, is this the consequences of my actions coming back to haunt me? Wow, Les Miles, who could have seen that coming? I know that the College Football Hall of Fame win threshold has been a hot topic. Somebody brought up Mike Leach being on the cusp, and then everybody, I guess, joined the fray, and I am one who would love to see Mike Leach in the College Football Hall of Fame. I'm also one that, and I believe, for the most part, rules are rules, and you don't just change them here and there to fit a certain thing, because I feel like if you change it for one guy, then that means you change it for everybody, and the next thing you know, you've got people eligible from decades past that were or at five. Like, where do you stop it then? Is it, so I think you've got to be careful with just changing it for the sake of changing it to accommodate a guy and Mike Leach, who I think we'd all love to see, but for Les Miles, there's not going to be any accommodating. I don't think anybody is sentimental towards him, unlike with a Mike Leach, and unlike Mike Leach, who had many years of coaching ahead of him. So if you were to make an exception, there's a case to be made. He was going to win enough games. He was going to be above that threshold. I don't think any of us have any doubt about that. He was just not afforded that opportunity, whereas Les Miles isn't coaching anymore because Les Miles was basically a scumbag. And so, again, the consequences of your own actions coming back to haunt you as far as that threshold goes. The vacated wins, that's a topic that can be interesting to wade into. I know there's plenty of people, and at times myself, I'm in this camp of I don't like vacated wins as a punishment. I think it's there's got to be a better. It costs you those wins, and then what costs you the opportunity to get more wins down the line. So I don't feel sorry for him. I understand the argument, but I also think it's very telling that none of his former schools are sitting there going, yeah, we'll go to bat for Les. As of now, they're completely quiet.
Well, retired stockbroker said, well, why nominate him if he's not eligible? And
exactly.
You made a great point, but I still think you could fight for him. But in this case, nobody of the three most largest programs he's been a part of, none of them, as you mentioned, have done so.
Right, and that was one of the things kind of confusing from your lead up there, was that he's eligible, but he's eligible as far as his age. He's eligible as far as how long he's been out of the game. He's eligible by those criteria. He's not eligible by the number of wins to be voted in. So that's the hiccup there. The eligibility is for all of the other boxes that you would check. So, that's something where, they're not going to go to bat and be like, we feel he should get 3 phantom wins or that we should bring these wins back. So, he's going to go through with the lawsuit, and we'll see where that takes him. I don't have high hopes for Les Miles to win this lawsuit. And again, I think it's the consequences of your own action coming back to bite you. All
right, so there's that. Also, this has been discussed about how you get players who are going to most likely be a part of the NFL, at least prospects to be a part of the NFL. How do you keep them from opting out of bowl games? This from the Front Office Sports. College football bowl games offering NIL deals would create prize money, incentivize players opting in their team's postseason games. Snoop Dogg has already done it. Nick Carapelli tells Front Office Sports it's likely right around the corner. Now, there's a tie-in here. The NCAA has said that unless the NCAA gives in on fighting payment for athletic participation, payments from bowl games won't be able to be based on participation. That's going to get wiped out. This is coming next, and maybe it lowers the number of players who opt out because of their interest in the NFL.
I'm so tired of hearing about money. I mean, at this point, but I understand that's what the whole world and really college sports right now revolves around. That's why we're talking about the All-State 12. That's why we're talking about expanded playoffs. We're not talking about that because a bunch of guys are like, you know what we've really been missing and what this sport has needed is, actually a real deal playoff. No, they're doing it because the money's there, and it makes sense now to finally do it because the money. So, yeah, I mean, this was inevitable that the bowl season and money was going to collide when it came to paying players because what incentive other than just pride and, wanting to put on for your school and play another college football game because Lord knows most of these guys aren't playing many games after their last bowl game. What else is going to keep guys playing in these games as we've seen, recently with various examples, but Florida State, when they got left out of the playoff, they just opened the door and everybody's like, all right, we're not playing in this game. It doesn't matter enough. Even though it was a respectable big bowl game, it's just not what it was in the 90s or even the 2000s for that matter, and certainly not prior to that. So in the NIL era, I think now you're going to have players who expect to be paid for everything and anything for the most part. I mean, not practice, but I mean, what avenue have we not heard there is now suddenly talk about paying players through? And so, yeah, bowl season is one of those because of the commitment and the extra month of practices and the interference when it comes to maybe NFL preparation and things like that, that if you want the best players to play, yeah, you're going to have to go the same route as everything else is going, and that's down the NIL route or the player pay route. So these bowl games have made money for a long time off the backs of athletes. Yeah, granted, they've given them watches and gift suites and cool things like that, iPods and all sorts of gifts and, toured them around the city and things like that. But as we've seen, this is a show me my money era. And so for these bowl sites to get all that tourism money that they won and bring people into town, they're going to have to pony up a bit more. And I think we've seen this coming from a mile away, especially with the expanded playoff and just the questions of, all right, so what does it mean now to be in such and such bowl? And like I said, for some, there'll just be the pride factor. They'll be wanting to play with your buddies for the final time. But for some guys to get the stars, I think you're going to have to pony up, so no surprise.
All right, I agree. That's just a matter of being wiped off the face of the earth, of not allowing the players to be incentivized. That's going to happen, and that's pretty much how you save the bowl games, who now are not a part of the playoff of 12. I mean, they are in a way, but not all of them. Now, I received this message from CFBN_plus. This is a pretty good question. I thought we could kind of chew on this a little bit. If the Big 12 did use private equity firm, and we're hoping to have a private equity firm investor on the show tomorrow, what would the schools spend that money on to make them more competitive? Better facilities? Better coaches? Could they use it for NIL? I don't know the answer to that. We will try to kind of fit on that, but I would think the facilities arms race is still there, but it's not like it was. It's about NIL and also paying to make sure your coaches, if you get a good one, stay around your football program.
It's 100% on NIL. I mean, not 100% in terms of all that money is going to go directly to NIL, but I think 100% of the main focus of that extra money is NIL related, because that's what separates you, is that money that you're not getting that the SEC or that the Big Ten are getting through their TV deal. That's the big separator, is the fact that you're going to have lower level schools who don't care as much about football or put forth as much effort in football as top programs in the Big 12 do, that are going to be by default because 100 years ago they were in the right place, right time, right situation, right alliance. They're making tens of millions of dollars more than you, and there's only so many indoors that you can build that separates you enough. So when you're talking about wins on the field, where does the difference get made? It's all talent related. It's player. Why do you build the facilities? To bring the players in. Yep. Why do you have the new uniforms? To wow the players. Like, everything's about the players, even though the players weren't necessarily receiving the benefit of that all the time. So, yeah, I think to answer your question, the majority of the focus will be on NIL-related expenses. And I can see, too, where it seeps into other avenues of just the partnership in general. If you start to put together your stadium project, well, guess who's going to be there to say, like, we'll help finance that? and then that relationship goes deeper. So I think it'll go beyond NIL, but I think the main gaps you're trying to plug, as seemingly others or a couple of others are sailing off and you're kind of taking on water, is how do you plug those holes that separate you? It's with NIL dollars. So, yeah, I think that's where the main focus will lie.
All right, Wet Blanket is in the chat room. He was talking about Les Miles left Oklahoma State at halftime of a bowl game for LSU, so F him. So thank you, Wet Blanket. And also may have noticed that Donovan Jones, a hell of a linebacker, who started out last year as an H-back tight end for Midway local school, we do their games, committed to play at Oklahoma State over the weekend. Really nice commitment. This kid is raw, and I don't mean that because of lack of experience. He only played linebacker for about half of last year, ran 2 picks for touchdowns, has great 2 punts blocked. Really, really good talent, and Oklahoma State gets him.
Yeah, and I appreciate CFB plus for the question. It's a good question, but yeah, hopefully I'd answer that the way you were looking for. And I'm sure there will be other things that it trickles to, but I think for the most part, that's what you're looking at with that extra money. But yeah, the Donovan Jones commitment, I think, is a really nice one for Oklahoma State. He's long, lanky, very athletic. Knack for big plays, as you just mentioned, some game-changing type plays that can flip the outcome of a game. I don't know how well that translates, but I know that guys don't just have that because they work really hard. Like, there's some natural ability that you have to be a ball hawk or a difference maker the way that Donovan Jones was. So I think he's very green in some ways still, and that's a good thing because he's a solid player already, but I think he's got a lot of room for further growth. So I think that's what's exciting for Oklahoma State, is there's a lot to already like, but there's a lot that I think is still potentially in store for Donovan. So I really like that pickup for Oak State. I think it's a good spot for Donovan, and yeah, thrilled for him to get the big opportunity to go to Stillwater.
And by the way, just a few minutes ago, Texas received a commitment class of 26 quarterback Dia Bell from American Heritage in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So Sarkisian starting to just like load up on the quarterbacks into the future. Hell of a talent. And so they now have their commitment for 2026 at quarterback.
Yeah, and I think that they'll probably have their 2030 guy lined up here the next couple of months. I think the last thing you're worried about if you're a Steve Sarkisian Texas team at this point or fan of them is what your quarterback situation is going to be. I think you made the comment off the air while we were getting on here, that it's kind of like when Art Browse was at Baylor or, Ohio State and their situation, and there's various others you can point to, but where you just saw this line created of superstar, highly rated recruits, quarterbacks, one after the other, and in those cases and some others, actually waiting because they wanted to be coached by Steve Sarkisian, right, or by, whoever example you want to use. And so I think that's the little magic that Sark has right now is, if you come in that you're going to have top-notch coaching, you're also going to have playmakers around you, you're going to be taken care of on and off the field, and you now have winning actual proof from last year of how close they are to being, at the top. And this SEC move is only, adding more to that mix as well. So, yeah, I think the quarterback spot at Texas is going to be healthy for a really long time. And I think, if anything, it'll just become a question of, how does it sort itself out? Because I know there's examples where guys are patient, but even still, it will then depend on, does Arch Manning stay for another year, or does he, leave early? And what does the domino effect kind of look like over time? But it's a great problem to have, and it's a problem they're going to have that's going to be a great one for a while. Yeah,
remember, RG3, Nick Florence was kind of a part of that early. Then it was Bryce Petty. Then it was Seth Russell. And then it was Jarrett Stidham. And it was just a hell of a deal. And once he got on, they stayed, and that was before the transfer portal. Now, I saw this. This was something that was sent to me, I think, on Saturday from a Colorado fan. He asked me, or he was making this comment based on our preseason Big 12 rankings. Someone needs to explain to me how shows like 365 Sports, Big 12 Mafia, all say if you have elite quarterback and skill position, then you should be pretty good. Yet both shows and others have Colorado ranked low. It is either anti-Sanders or content creators corrected too much. It's not an anti-Deion. I love the guy.
I don't give a blank about Deion Sanders, and it doesn't affect my opinion on Colorado football.
No, not at all. And the content creators, we do create content. All of us who did our preseason rankings really we're being as honest to you as we can. And he and I went back and forth a little bit later on. It doesn't mean, though, that you're going to win. And even a few people responded to that. If they can run the ball fairly well, they'll be pretty good. They'll be a bowl team. But that still remains to be seen, no matter the changes they've made on the offensive line and also the infusion of other and new talent.
I think it's an excellent question, because that was what kept me actually floating the idea in my head of putting Colorado higher, was the fact that Shedeur is maybe the best quarterback in the Big 12. He's certainly in the discussion for that. He's certainly in the discussion for one of the better quarterbacks in the country. And he's, wherever you want to put him in between, guys like Noah Fafita and everybody else in the league is up to you. But that's a great question. I just think that the default of, like, you say something bad about Colorado, it's because you don't like Deion. I just think that's such utter garbage. And I say what I say about Deion is, like, he's not changing my opinion, like, on how many games. Like, I'm not thinking about him. You know what I mean? And it's not like one way or the other. I'm just not thinking about him when I'm deciding how many games that they win. And maybe I should. Maybe that for some people gives them 2 extra wins or less loss or less wins. I don't know. But I'm thinking about the talent of the field. So that's a great question, and it's a very fair question. For me, at least, it was taking a look at their schedule. It was also taking a look at other schools. Like, just because Colorado's got good players, so does a lot of other teams. Like, a lot of other teams have good players and a lot of guys coming back as well. And for Colorado, yeah, there's not a question at quarterback, and there's not a question at wide receiver, and corner as well when talking about their dual threat there in Travis Hunter. But there's questions every single place else on the field, practically.
At least until we see
which we can't do right now. So yeah, that's really more of what it's about. Is I saw the 2-man show last year, and it worked out pretty well at times, and then it kind of floundered, and that is, for me, until I see more around them, it's hard to say, like, yeah, let's give them 7 or 8 wins and just the benefit of the doubt, because there was a lot of issues that were out of the hands of Shedeur and Travis Hunter and company last year. So that's where I was coming from, is there's just a lot of unproven around those guys, but certainly they probably are getting disrespected a little bit because of what a good combination that is. But yeah, we got to stop with if you say something negative about Colorado, you're anti-Deion. I just think that's ridiculous, and it's kind of lazy at this point.
By the way, we will absolutely dig into and look back, chew up, digest, and wow, what a final few holes at the U.S. Open at Pinehurst #2. Shane Ryan will join us from Golf Digest at just after 5 today. That was unbelievable. A lot of you texted me during the last few holes. That was insane. I couldn't move. And with Rory's collapse, and also Bryson DeChambeau now becoming like Americans' hero in golf, which has been interesting. His, I guess you could, transformation. We'll do that today a little bit after 5 o'clock. One more note about Colorado. This is a part of Athlon Magazine, the preseason edition. Anonymous, and I don't like using those, but an anonymous Big 12 coach on Colorado. It's going to be a circus just like last season. So expect the unexpected. Prime makes, no matter what decisions he makes or how much he matters, they cannot have a winning season without a functional run game and legitimate offensive line. That's one position group. You can't really portal in one cycle. If they're halfway better there, they'll have a winning season. Known quarterback quantity, and when you look at the kid Shedeur, away from the hype of his father, he can make legitimate throws, has innate talent and great instinct. So that's from a coach quoted in Athlon, the football preseason magazine.
Yeah, they did anonymous coach quotes on every team, and it was interesting to wade through some of those. And opposing coaches don't always know best, but yeah, I mean, Shadeur's a real talent. Like, there's no doubt about that. He's the real deal. Travis Hunter's the real deal. But name a bunch of other guys, and that's the thing. And for me, like, the part about Deion and the circus, I want to make that very clear too, because just like I was saying about, you can't say anything negative without somebody go, oh, you don't like Deion. I didn't even take into account, and I don't take into account the circus, if you will, and I don't necessarily expect it either. So I give them the respect and the benefit of the doubt that, oh, well, it's going to be a circus. I don't necessarily believe that. I'm not thinking that or predicting that. I know there's a lot of anti-Deion folks out there, but not on this desk. If they do well, then great for them. I think he's great for the league. If they don't do well, then like any coach who doesn't do well, they need to be talked about because of why they didn't do well and the reasons as to why. And sometimes that could be the coach. He's not perfect. But, yeah, I think it's it's a little maybe unnecessary to just think that there's going to be a circus surrounding them just because there was last year. I think that's a little unfair to Colorado's credit. So, we'll see ultimately. And if it does turn into a circus, then, yeah, that probably doesn't bode well for them.
All right, when